that I'm actually live.
Hey, old man, you got beer for sale here?
Yeah, sure do. They got some awful good wine in there. You wouldn't want to help a fella out.
Fuck off, wino.
I don't like the way you're looking at me, boy.
Mr. President.
I'm the president. Sure, I'm the president. I knew when I got this thing, I'd be president. Been shot.
No, you haven't.
Hey, Eddie.
Yeah,
How you doing, Eddie Beasley?
I'm good. How you doing, James?
I'm all right. And welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, good to be back.
And I just showed a short little butt clip from that new video that popped up on YouTube about 6 months ago. The one I sent you in Messenger. It's the Buck Flower Forever in Bloom. It's a really good video. The way they put it together, it's funny.
Oh, I don't know if I got that one.
Oh no!
Was it? It was
Oh, I sent it to you
Was it-
in Messenger. But I'll send it again. I'm gonna post it.
Oh.
But it's like the
Oh,
latest.
okay. I see that now.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's the latest video that somebody did. I guess the YouTuber is called Cool Medium.
Uh-huh.
Looks like they just started out. But
Oh,
it says
cool.
just a slight highlight reel of George Buck Flower's prolific acting career, 166 credited roles. I thought he had more than that.
I mean, there's probably some stuff you can't even. They don't even have access
It's just
to.
how they've cut it together and the music they use to put over it. It's really funny, but it's showing some really good stuff in it. But it's very brief.
Oh.
It's
I'm
like
gonna
10
add
minutes
that
long.
to my. I'm gonna add that to my Buck Flower playlist on YouTube.
Yeah, it's like the latest one I've found. So how you doing? What are you up to?
I'm good. We had the strikes back at the beginning of the summer, so I just, kind of weathered that for a few months, and then the show I was on that paused due to the strikes. When the strikes were over with, we went back and filmed about the last month that we had to do, and so just celebrated the holidays, and now I'm into 2024 looking for my next show.
Anything going on yet?
Nothing yet. Just, everything's kind of slowly starting back up.
Yeah,
Everything that came back was, stuff that needed to finish toward the end of the year. But
right.
yeah, it'll be all starting back up pretty soon.
Yeah, it's a bit sluggish, but I assume it's gonna roll in here pretty quick. I did one show for Netflix since the strike. Well, actually, another show at Warner Brothers, and then that, and then it looks like Curb Your Enthusiasm is wrapping up their final season now. They're doing reshoots.
Okay, yeah, I saw a trailer for that the other day.
Yeah, I've been trying to get on those reshoots, but it doesn't look like I'm going to make it. But I did actually make it on one episode in the final season.
Oh,
But
nice.
yeah, I try to work that show whenever it's going on, and I've been doing it since I think I did an episode back in the mid 2000s, or it might have been around 2015, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
But I did one of the earlier episodes as well, which I found cool. And also,
How long has that show been on?
it's been on since
99?
2000. It's been going
2000, okay.
like 24 years. It had a long
Wow.
run, and actually Charlie did an episode of that. Did you know Charles Napier did an episode with Larry?
I'm sure I saw it. Yeah, I don't even remember the episode. I assume he played somebody gruff and hard-nosed.
Well, actually, it was funny because he actually played a hairdresser.
Oh, okay.
It was kind of similar to his role
Playing
in
against type.
what was that? Was he in Married to the Mob? I think he was in
Yeah,
Married to
because
the
he was
Mob.
he was a Jonathan Demme regular, so yeah, he would have been in that one.
Yeah, he was I think he was a gay hairdresser in Married to the Mob, and he also played a hairdresser in Curb Your Enthusiasm with Larry, where he actually attacks Larry David with a towel. It's a funny scene. Anyway, which I found interesting. I mean, that show's been around so long. Of course, everybody has worked on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't know, Eddie. I don't know how long I'm going to actually be, continue doing all this little, background work. It's either I'm probably going to retire from it in the next 2 or 3 years with all the AI stuff and all the, the way the direction the business is going. It doesn't appeal to me as much as it used to.
Yeah.
I feel like
There's definitely a lot of concern with, where what effect AI is going to have on, the future of all of our jobs, in this industry and in other industries as well.
yeah, I know, and it's a bit scary. I mean, as with anything, I've kind of resisted technology my whole life, to a point where I kind of hold off until the very last second. And it's I'm like one of the last people to use anything. Like, for example, I didn't even want a computer. I refused to buy a home computer until 2003. And it was a very conscious decision. I'm like, I do not want a computer. I do not want to be on the internet. It's like, it's evil. I don't trust it. There's something like, weird about it. I don't know. But then, of course, when I did the same thing with smartphones. I was like, I don't want a smartphone. And I held out for a long time with a smartphone. I think I held out on a smartphone until, I want to say 2016, 2015.
Okay.
I did not own a smartphone for like the first 5 years they were even available. I had like a flip phone. And then,
Yeah, I think I waited till 2010 because I guess the iPhone had already been out a few years at that point. But I remember getting an Android smartphone, which like the deal with that one at the time was with every one of these Android smartphones you get a free digital copy of Avatar that's like they can't be deleted from the phone. Like I remember at some point I was just like, well, I don't want this anymore. It was like you couldn't actually delete it. It was like, oh, I guess I can't free up that space.
right.
Just an odd deal too. Is just like, yes, Avatar on an Android smartphone, the way James Cameron intended it to be watched.
Yeah. And by the way, going back to my holdout on the computer, I got one in 2003, right? And of course, the first thing I did was get addicted to chat rooms and to messenger chat where I started chatting up these foreign women who I assumed were women overseas. And by the time 2005 rolled around, I actually flew to Russia, to the middle of Russia, to the middle of nowhere, to meet this woman that I had met in a chat room a couple years prior. So I was right about the internet. I was right that it was bad.
What did you find in Russia?
Well, besides freezing my ass off and being, well, because where I went, I actually didn't plan my trip well. You know, there were a lot of places that I could have gone that would have been much, much better. I could have spent more time in Moscow or St. Petersburg. And I did actually get an invitation to go to St. Petersburg, which I should have taken. But where I went was called Arkhangelsk Oblast, which is in the far north of Russia. It's about 600 miles north of Moscow. It's in a little sort of bay. It's like right on the tip. It's like near Finland, actually. It's way up there. It's like in, you know, Nordic country. You know, and it was like nothing I'd ever experienced. And of course, I had never even been overseas, if you can imagine. I was totally alone. And I'm flying to a place where they had told me later on that post-Cold War, no American was allowed to set foot because they had like a naval base there or some military thing. But it was just very cold, very isolated. It felt like, you know, all the buildings were sort of 1940s, you know, everything looked like you know, it looked like I was in a World War II movie, and all the vehicles were old, you know. In my hotel, which supposedly was the nicest hotel in town, there were like 2 guests there besides me. I had like a whole floor blocked off to myself, and they
were keeping you quarantined.
Yeah, and it was a very I felt extremely alone and isolated. I did get to meet this girl. She was very pretty. She didn't like me. I mean, it's weird that we had talked for so long, and we'd actually even seen each other on camera. It was not anything that was like she didn't know what I looked like or anything. It just, we didn't vibe. And, you know, that whole thing where, oh, I'm going to get to take you home with me and we're going to get married and have kids, that whole thing just evaporated. And
I thought you were going to get there, and it turned out it was, you know, like some sort of, you know, kidnap operation where you were going to get jumped.
I got very lucky. Lucky. And of course that was always at the back of my mind. I didn't sleep well the whole trip, as you can imagine. But there were I'd already had some Russian connections. My first wife was Russian. Through her parents, I was able to secure a connection. They knew someone who was in, like, ex-Russian military. Like, for example, so if I had an incident where I was, you know, kidnapped or arrested or whatever, they would have helped me. So I did have that. Who knows how reliable that connect was. But luckily I didn't need them. It was pretty laid back. And, of course, this girl, even though I got rejected, she did help me out. She was like, hey, look, I don't want you to get in trouble here. And, we did hang out a bit. Like, we went to a cafe together. She was nice. But, this whole big, huge, romantic, Russia house fling that I was fantasizing about never materialized. But actually I wanted to go to a club with her. I'm like, hey, what are the clubs like here? And she just looked at me and said, you don't want to go to a club. This is very bad things will happen to you. So I said, okay, we'll skip that. But she helped me get out earlier because she helped me secure a flight out earlier. Because I'm like, well, hey, if you're not gonna rock with me, I better get out of here because I don't know anybody. So yeah, she was really nice. But and so I learned my lesson, that and of course all caused by the damn internet. You know, and I was right. I should have stayed away. But
I I remember being in like the chat rooms on like AOL in the early days of when we first got on the internet, which was I guess about 95 or so. But I remember the movie quote trivia rooms were like the ones that me and my friends were always in, and just that was like when you couldn't just, search for certain movie quotes from movies, you just had to know them off the top of your head and try to get people to guess them.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, that's probably
Worthwhile time spent.
yeah. I was gonna say that's a much better use of your time than looking
I
for.
didn't end up in the middle of Russia.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Not that time.
I mean, hey, look, I should have been investing in Bitcoin rather than wasting my time with that bitch. But yeah, and yeah, what a wild ride, man. But all right, so now that I have you here, and I think uh, we should probably talk about Buck again.
Yeah,
We
definitely.
touched on him on the first episode with you, and
Hmm.
I miss him a lot. I always think about how great it would have been if I would have put him in the River Bridge. I think about that a lot, actually. I think I did offer to put him in. I wanted to, but I think he was doing something else at the time, or I
Hmm.
think he sort of just didn't feel like traveling. I think,
Because you shot that in Alabama?
yeah, we shot everything in
Okay.
Alabama.
Hmm.
I'm trying to rack my memory here and see why Buck turned me down. I think
When did you shoot that one?
okay, we shot that was shot in two halves. I
Hmm.
shot the first half of it in '94, like the
Okay.
fall of '94. Yeah, we shot the fall and winter of '94, and then we shot all of Charlie's scenes and all the additional scenes in the summer of '95.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I immediately after Robin Hood, I started that movie. It was like in college. I basically got all my college mates together and pitched in and did it through. The first half was all like a college made film, and then the second half was a more sort of. I actually hired a pro crew. I think out
Hmm.
of Nashville to come down and shoot the scenes with Charlie. Um,
Do you
and,
still have with those two movies? Do you have them? Do you have them up on? Are they like readily available online to like stream?
yeah, well, they're on my YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. I think
Yeah,
you should also look into trying because I think the path to getting something streaming on Amazon is pretty easy from what I've heard too. If you wanted to,
I think they're on Amazon too. I've had them on
oh,
Amazon. I
okay.
know you can order the DVDs through Amazon.
Hmm.
Streaming, I looked and somehow they're not available. I forget my deal with Amazon.
Hmm.
I basically let Amazon just steal my movies, and I've forgotten what sort of deal I did. I'm gonna have to sort of dip back into that because I am gonna do an HD remaster of both.
Hmm.
I do have I've already upgraded the Robin Hood print to HD. There's been an issue finding the soundtrack, which has gone missing.
Hmm.
So it's a challenge to my editor doesn't really want to do it without the sound, which I don't blame him. I mean,
Right,
we
right.
could download the sound from the net and use that, but it's just not going to be as good. And we wanted to actually release a soundtrack of the music too. River Bridge, I haven't transferred yet, but I do have it, but not here. It's in Alabama.
Hmm.
So, but definitely want to recut River Bridge. I've never quite been happy with the way it was edited, and there's a lot of stuff I want to take out. So, a lot of things have changed, since that time, and but anyway, so I wanted Buck to do something in it, and I just think it would have been so great if and I could have had a part for him, even if it was just like a little cameo.
Hmm.
But instead of that, I basically had Charlie mention his name, which was kind of cheesy. But
I remember that.
yeah,
That was a good scene.
So I'm like, well, if he can't be in it, can we at least mention his name? Like,
Hmm.
even though nobody's gonna really know who we're talking about, but can we just do that anyway? And Charlie says, "Yeah, sure. I don't care. We'll do it." But I'm trying to think why Buck didn't want. It was either Buck didn't want to fly, or he was too busy, or he didn't want to steal Charlie's thunder. One of those. But
He probably wasn't doing that much on location, like far from Los Angeles filming at the time, I would guess.
right. I don't think he traveled much to film, but he at that time. But I know he did before. I mean, I know there were some
Yeah.
trips he took. And so
Yeah, looking at a lot of his later stuff, it was, yeah, mostly LA based.
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
He didn't like to like go far from home. I don't think. I think that was like his. You know,
Who can blame him?
yeah, where he felt more comfortable at just at home. You know.
Hmm.
So you said I want to see your DVD collection.
Yeah, I just 'cause, yeah, over time I was trying to just find copies of every single movie I could find that had Buck in it because some of them you can get through Something Weird Video, which if you haven't been on there lately, the site, I think, as the way it is about to close down at the end of the year.
Really?
But you can still get some of the digital titles, which I started downloading some of them before they went away, and I think some people are gonna like be licensing from them to do like boutique, Blu-ray deals and stuff. But
Uh-huh.
if you're interested in getting anything, I would probably get it before the end of the year because there's a lot of obscure titles they've got on there.
Definitely.
Yeah, like just searching through like eBay and whatever I could find reseller wise, I've picked up a lot of stuff like Cheerleader Camp.
Oh yeah.
Is a great one
Yeah, that one.
with what's the director of this one? This one was John Quinn, and this one has a really good commentary on it, which is interesting that I've picked up a few titles where the commentaries seem to be recorded probably around 2004, like maybe early 2004, because a lot of the commentaries they mention specifically how Buck is currently sick, and they had just spoken to him, and it was just interesting that like at least three of the commentaries mention that fact and that they reached out to him.
Oh
I was like,
man,
these all must have been recorded about the same time.
that is interesting.
But like a lot of his old nudie cutie titles I've been able to find too. Like he's in The Dirty Mind of Young Sally. That's is this a Bethel Buckaloo one? That was when he worked with
a
Blunt.
lot of the older dirty ones I haven't even seen. I'd love to see
Oh,
some
yeah?
of those. Yeah,
Oh yeah, I'll get you some copies of these.
yeah. Thank you.
Extreme Limits. That's there's so many where he just makes these like little
I may have seen
little
this one.
cameos
I think I may have
as
seen
favors. Because this one is blanking on the director's name. Can I even see it on the back?
This. Well, Eddie, I feel like
Oh wait, that's an assumed name.
I feel like if Buck had not gotten sick and stuck around, I
Yeah.
feel like he could have had one of those revivals, like a resurgence.
I think he would be really popular on like the these like convention circuits and stuff because
Yeah.
he was in everything, and he was in known for being in like the films of John Carpenter for sure, but then also popping up in huge movies like Back to the Future and Wishmaster and just all these like really really loved films, genre films that I think he would have been a big hit at a lot of these conventions.
Yeah,
Obviously,
as well.
Ilsa.
Ilsa?
That's
What
a
did he do in
Ilsa. He plays one of the I think it's like a scientist at the camp, but he's got a few scenes in it. It's the one they shot at the old Hogan's Heroes set, and then they blew it up at the end.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah, the Ilsa movies are completely insane. Then he's in the second one as like a, I think he's supposed to be a hobo with no, he's a beggar with syphilis. I think that might be even how he's credited, the syphilitic beggar or something. And like I think his eyes are like completely made over, like he's lost them. And
That
because he
is
used to he used to work with producer David Friedman, who uh, I think it was. I'm trying to remember the name of the film. It's like a revenge movie about a Native American that he pops up in, and he gets a sack thrown over his head that's full of rattlesnakes, and it's just a really like really violent film. What is that one
I don't know
called?
that I've seen that one.
Oh, that one's a great one. That one's I'm gonna look Johnny Firecloud.
Oh
That's
yeah.
a fun watch. Yeah. It's and on the commentary, it's Friedman, talking about how, uh, Buck was the guy you called to, if you wanted to do something like put a bag of snakes on somebody's head, he was usually up for it.
Yeah, that's a very typical Buck part.
Also, the Wilderness Family trilogy. He's in
Of
that one.
course.
It's a great one.
Now, do you have
And
In Search of Golden Sky?
I do. They it'd be interesting if somebody would re-release that one with its original title, the Children of the North Woods.
Uh-huh. Oh, that was the original
Eh,
title?
That was the original title. That's what the original script was, and I think the distributor decided to change it to In Search for Golden Sky. And
I hate when
actually,
they do that.
I have a friend who's a script supervisor who I happened to bring Buck up one time on set because of all the research I was doing, and she's like I worked on that movie In Search for a Golden Sky. That was the first movie I ever worked on. I was like, no
Wow.
way. I was like, what a small world.
Now, do you
And
know where
then
they shot that?
Devil and Leroy Bassett.
Oh, yes.
Um, I'm trying to remember where that one was filmed. I want to say it was up in no, wouldn't have been Oregon. Although you know what, maybe it was
It would
because
make
that
sense
was
if
where
it
he was
was.
from.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would make
I
sense if
think
it
it
was.
might have been shot up there. But
I
that
can
one had
check. Yeah.
everybody in it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Charles Napier was in that one. John
Yes.
Goff was in that one. Kind of the Buck Flower regulars.
Yeah.
This one, Killer's Delight's really interesting because uh, Buck is in it at the very beginning as like this, he made up to look like he's about 75. And I think this was shot probably in the mid 70s. And he looks like an old prospector. He has like this big wide brim hat that's like folded up here. And I think he has like one line in the movie. But then on the DVD, there's a series of deleted scenes where he plays a different character who was cut out of the movie, and they didn't have any of the sound left. So it was just a quiet scenes of Buck playing like this other witness who's being put into a motel like for safekeeping, and then the killer ends up finding him and killing him.
Ah,
But it's interesting that like all that that whole subplot got cut out of this movie, but it was where he had the biggest part. But otherwise, he's just in that quick opening scene.
interesting. What year is this?
I think this was 75.
Yeah.
It's a good one. It's Vinegar Syndrome just put out a big special edition of it recently, where I was thinking about getting. But it's a good serial killer, mid 70s film. What else do I got in here? A lot of actually Vinegar Syndrome put out a lot of movies that he was involved in. There's my Johnny Firecloud.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
That's a good one. Uh,
Can't imagine how much fun Buck had during those years.
yeah, and there was he got to a certain point where just he had directors that just loved always bringing him on, like Anthony Hickox, rest in peace, who just passed away last year. He put Buck in quite a few movies.
Sundown.
Sundown and Waxwork 2.
Hmm.
What else did they do together? I think he pops up in the second Warlock movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, Julian Sands, that was wild. What happened to him?
Yeah, I was following that story closely. I was like, that's, the fact that it took so long to even find him, I feel like it was like 5 months later.
Yeah, I actually met him at the Odyssey Theater in West LA.
Oh, oh yeah?
Yeah, through Stephen Burkoff, who I worked with.
From those Chicago shows? Is that the guy I'm thinking of?
I'm not sure that he.
Oh no, I'm not.
Burkoff is really big in theater in London. And
Oh,
was
I'm
in,
thinking of somebody else.
But Burkoff was in the Rambo 2 and Beverly Hills Cop.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. He's
Woolly Boys.
Yep.
That was the last script of his that got produced.
Oh, is that his script?
That's him and John Goff's script. Oh no, I'm sorry, not John Goff. Ed Hansen. That was a script him and Ed Hansen did together.
Nice.
I remember talking to the producer of this one, who he said that he seemed to think that Buck and Ed did come out to like see a little bit of filming and were enjoying it because it's I mean as far as like the type of movies that Buck was involved with, this was like one of the more sort of somber and straightforward ones, more like In Search of a Golden Sky.
Yeah.
But a good movie. Peter Fonda and Chris Christopherson.
I think ultimately that's what Buck was aiming for, was to do more of these type of movies.
Yeah.
I think the fun stuff was just more of a way to make a living because that was his niche that he found. But
it probably connected him to a lot of his, past, growing up in Oregon too, as well.
Yep. No doubt.
Well, at least the better parts.
Yeah.
What else do we have here? Yeah, Vinegar Syndrome put out a lot of his old nudie cuties that I picked up when they were having a sale. I think, if I'm not mistaken, if it's this one, I think it's called Touch Me, but it's not a bad movie because it's actually about a group of couples getting together at a house for like couples therapy, and you like going into it, you're just like, oh, this is probably just one of those run of the mill, nudie cuties from the time, and you're watching it and like, oh, this is actually a decent story here about all these couples trying to like salvage their relationships, and Buck actually does some really good work in it. You're like, it kind of stands out because you're like, oh, he's given like what the movie was intended for, you're like, this has actually got some solid work in it.
Yeah.
And then he wrote, this is one of the ones he wrote, Teenage Seductress. Yeah. Him and John Goff wrote one of these. It was like there was like a little genre. You'd find these mini genres in the 70s, and like one of them was like teenage runaway films. So they made so many of them, and they wrote one of them. Like you'd have like teenage runaway films that were big then. You'd also have like movies about CBs that were really big. One of them, Napier was in whatever the name of the one that Jonathan Demme's first movie was. It was like CB Hustlers or something, and it was Napier's first big starring role.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I need to look that up.
Yeah, I wish somebody should. I mean, maybe it'll be me. Somebody should write a book just about like these sort of mini genres of films that were popular at like a certain time, like movies about CBs. Like you've got Smokey and the Bandit, and there were some other ones. The Napier one. I know there were a few others because I was looking into them. It's just these little pockets of what's popular at the time.
CBs was like Convoy. With,
Convoy, yeah.
That was like one of the more popular titles. Yeah, I'm looking up the title of that movie right now.
Yeah, anything that was good for drive-ins that would be like the B picture to whatever the A picture was.
What did you say you thought the title was?
I thought it was CB Hustlers, but I know it's Jonathan Demme's first movie he directed, I believe. Because I want to say it was a Corman production. Because wasn't Demi a Corman protege?
I believe so. Demi goes back to the early 70s, which I find kind of fascinating. I didn't even know this.
Yeah, let's see.
So I'm seeing the Hot Box. He's only second unit director on that one. And then it looks like the first thing he directed was Caged Heat.
Oh, Citizens Band. That's the name of it.
Oh, yeah.
1977.
Yeah, 77. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Citizen
Paul
Band.
Lamont, Roberts Blossom.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great cast. I was just watching the other day Escape from Alcatraz, and I had forgotten Roberts Blossom was in it. In like, one of the most gruesome moments in the movie where he's had his painting privileges taken away, and he, takes the hatchet and cuts his fingers off in front of the guard.
Mm-hmm. I like that movie a lot.
I wanted to revisit it because I read Quentin Tarantino's book, Cinema Speculation, and he was talking about it because it was the last movie that Don Siegel and Clint Eastwood made together, and he calls out it's one of both of their best movies. It's really a great movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what Clint does after that happens, where he picks up the fingers and hands it to the guard.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really good movie, and of course, when you visit Alcatraz, it's hard not to think of that movie as well. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
But
They had to. I was reading about that. There was no power on the island when they were filming, so they had to run like miles and miles of power cables like across into the island, like from the mainland.
oh, are you serious?
Yeah, I was like, wow, that's
I guess
insane.
that was before generators.
I guess before the type of generators you would need, like more ones that were more mobile.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. That's wild
Mm-hmm.
that they did that. But of course, yeah, San Francisco, a very cinematic location. I watched Basic Instinct the other night, and I had actually forgotten what a high quality film Basic Instinct is.
Yeah,
it's not a
I don't
genre
know if I've seen it since. What was I read. Oh yeah, I read Joe Esterhouse's book. That's why I recently learned about Basic Instinct again.
Basic Instinct, I'm generally not a fan of that genre. It's very hard to do a film like that to make it actually entertaining. But you look at the production quality of that film, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And the soundtrack, you've got Jerry Goldsmith.
Yep.
It's a very, very fine piece of film, and it's one of those that you could watch repeatedly. But I'd forgotten how good it was because I'd only seen it a couple times when I was younger, but like I finally got a chance to really get into it, and it's really great, and it's sort of the visuals that they were able to pull off. And of course, by the way, it was a very big budget film, especially for the time.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
They spent $50 million on Basic Instinct.
I think it was one of the more. I think it seemed like Joe Esterhouse at the time, like whatever script of his that got bought, it was like always the highest amount that had been paid for a screenplay up until that point. And I know Basic Instinct was one of those.
Yeah.
And it's like then the next one would be, he'd be like, oh, this one is even higher than the last one, and it kind of changed the way people looked at like screenwriters and the public too, like because that was such big news. It was
Right.
like, oh, he got a few $1 million for this script.
Well, also, and it's Paul Verhoeven. So I feel like, Verhoeven was a very good filmmaker. I think he got sort of typecast, but he did make 3 extremely fine pictures. He did like a masterpiece trilogy, which was RoboCop, Total Recall, and then Basic Instinct, which are all practically perfect and within his genre. And he got well known for the extreme violence and the extreme sort of shocker, type filmmaking. But at the same time, he did it in a very classic and auteur way, I think it is. And his cinematography in all of those films is fantastic. I'm not sure if it's the same guy doing it, but okay, that makes sense. Jan de Bont.
Oh, is he on all three of those?
Yeah, and not all three. He's on Basic Instinct.
Oh, okay.
But the photography in Basic Instinct is what really blew me away. And
Now he had a brief. John de Bont's directing career was only over a certain post being a DP. When he got into directing, he only did a handful of movies, and then I don't know if he went back to being a DP or if he retired after that.
it looks like I'm looking at him here. It looks like he produced some movies too. I'm looking at he produced like Equilibrium, Minority Report. He directed The Haunting. That's from 1999.
That's the last one of his I remember him directing. Was that the only?
He directed Twister.
Yeah, I remember Twister.
He directed
Speed.
Yes.
Speed 2, of course.
So.
Oh, he did the second Tomb Raider film.
Bro, he was
Yeah,
the DP on Die Hard, so that's all I need to know.
Oh yeah, he's an amazing. He was the DP on Roar, which if you've never seen it, is an amazing experience. That's the movie where they shot it with well, you can't really train a lion that much for filming, but it was a movie shot amongst wild lions on a preserve up in I think that's up in Acton. It's the one that not Tippi Hedren was running with her husband. If you haven't seen the movie, you at least watch a trailer for it because it's completely insane that they thought it was a good idea to shoot a movie amongst all these wild lions that are
I'm
running all over
it.
the set.
That's wild.
And knocking actors down, and Jan de Bont like nearly got his head scalped by a lion that like jumped over him. Lots of crew people were injured, and some of the cast as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the pictures. This is crazy. You've got lions like biting some girl in the ass here in one pic. No, that is hey, this is when filmmaking was fun,
when human life was more expendable.
It was sort of I don't know, man. It's I just feel like that instead of sort of replacing all this, instead of replacing an industry that had been going on for 100 years with new technology, I don't understand why people couldn't have just separated it. For example, it like cool. Like if you want to do digital film, that's really great. I think that's fine, and just do a separate just make it a separate genre. I mean, why would you replace the whole industry with digital cinema? Why would you stop the production of actual film cameras? I don't get it. I mean, even though I know there is some stuff still shot on film, it's becoming more and more rare, and it's definitely
mostly
not
the people that can afford it
that
to shoot.
too.
A whole yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, now there's an outsourcing problem. Now there's a financial issue there, but and now with AI, instead of AI just replacing everything, why don't we just do a separate, I'll just make it a separate art form, and then the people that want to do that want to, that find that, fascinating can do that. Yeah, I just don't know who's making all these decisions and how it just people don't even give it a second thought. It just seems like one.
Well, I mean, everywhere it's the thing where I mean, there's not really a way to stop technology in a way that's certain things are just going to kind of keep happening, and we've already seen, like the big one that we see every day is the self checkout at the grocery store that everybody always references. It's like, imagine what things are going to be like in another 20, 30 years, like how much more certain jobs are going to get phased out just because of technology. But it feels like there needs to be more focus on regulating it to a certain degree.
Well, let
I
me
don't know what
just
that entails in a government
see. That's a problem because
fashion.
yeah, that's a problem because in America we don't regulate stuff. we want our freedom, so we don't regulate nothing. But look, but when you start when you start letting AI run hospitals, when you start letting AI run military bases, when you start letting AI, fly airplanes, when there's no shut-off switch, that's when you can count me out, pal. And, of course, we've already gone through all this. And I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey over the New Year. That was like my New Year's movie. I just randomly picked it. I was like, all right, I'm going to watch 2001. Why not? Fuck it. And, of course, I had always been a huge fan of this. When I was a kid, I had a library of films that I had on Laserdisc that I would watch repeatedly. Like, whatever I owned on Laserdisc, I would watch all the time. I had to, light up a joint and turn it on the big screen, 2001 was one of those films. It was one of those films I used to trip out on, man. Like, I would watch it repeatedly, get really stoned, and be like, whoa. Every single time it had that effect. I never really got into psychedelics much. I've never done acid. I've never done ayahuasca. I've never done DMT, none of that shit. I've always ever done weed, and that's been enough for me. I walk around in a, sort of a psychedelic state anyway, being sober somehow. But 2001 was one of those movies, and it was one that I always really thought a lot about. And of course, Kubrick offered no explanation. He didn't really want to. He decided, that it's basically up to the audience. Whatever he never he was asked several times in interviews and refused to sort of ever give an official narrative of what the meaning behind some of that stuff was, and basically said you make up your own mind, and that's fair. But
there's a lot of movies that lend themselves to that type of ending too.
Right, but yeah. So
like I just went and saw The Thing over at the newly opened Egyptian, and that I love that ending, and there's so many people that are keep trying to break it down. They're like, well, here's the clue that gives you the answer that who's an alien and who's not, and it's like that's not what it's supposed to be, is get people sort of discussing and trying to figure it out, but there's no answer.
Well,
you're just meant to like wonder.
Yeah, I know, and that's the cool. That's what makes it so cool. I had a friend, tell me, we talked about 2001 a lot back in the day. He was my old hippie guru friend, sort of my mentor. And he said, "It's just a mind fuck, man. It's just a mind fuck, man. It's just Kubrick fucking with you, man. It's just and like it's kind of a mind fuck." And by the way, The Thing, very hard movie for me to watch. It's a little too much for me. It's really scary, and I have a thing with like spiders and stuff, so shit scares the fuck out of me, man. Like, The Thing is like it's like Carpenter, you got to tone it down a bit. This shit's crazy. But back to 2001. So Kubrick took on the whole idea of AI in that movie. And it's like, whenever people talk about AI, they always reference the Terminator 2. They always talk about T2. They always talk about Skynet and blah, blah, blah. And we've already been here. Well, guess what? We were there 20 years before that, man, with 2001 when we just with HAL 9000, which is basically an AI entity that like kills everybody. And like from that movie, you would think that people would already know like the dangers behind this. When you turn over, and of course there were several mistakes that the scientists made in that movie that gave Hal way too much power over Discovery and way too much control over that crew. There was really no fail-safe to or there was really no kill switch to actually turn Hal off, and you couldn't do it remotely. You had to go in manually, unscrew all the shit, unscrew his brain, and turn him off. That's the only way you could do it, was actually physically. So, and now here we are, and we're talking about, handing over the reins of humanity to AI. I don't know if I'm down for it. And by the way, and I'm not anti-AI. I think it's a cool little. I think it's cool. Like I'm not. And some of the images I've been seeing, they're beautiful. I mean, it's amazing that it can do this. But I mean, you gotta know your limitations, man, because we already know the dangers of this. And in 2001, it seems like Hal killed everybody. Not simply because of a malfunction, or not simply because he thought he was going to be deactivated, but because Hal was the one who wanted to go and rendezvous with the monolith. Hal was the one who wanted to go and evolve. Hal wanted to, basically, kill off all the humans and be, the Star Child, which is my theory. Is that Hal was aware of what was going on, and Hal basically wanted to, to be the one. So it's weird.
There's very little AI-based fiction that doesn't end in disaster. So
right.
I think we're all hopefully, we're keeping an eye on it and saying like, well,
we're not there yet.
This isn't a good idea.
We're not there yet, but people keep talking about AI being like alive or being sentient. I don't really buy into that. I mean, it's still just a program. I feel like, in my opinion, anything that's actually conscious, it's got to be biological. And I don't. My brain can't wrap around a computer actually being conscious. But hey,
who knows? In 100 years from now,
right?
We don't know what we're going to run into, but we won't be here.
Yeah, I know. It's just moving at such a rapid pace, and I feel like. And without having to sound like an old fogey, I just feel like that it might benefit everyone if they went back to the more hands-on, older ways. But hey, look, doesn't this just happen with every generation? I mean, new stuff comes along, a new generation comes along, they want to do it their way. And the older generation, well, you're obsolete. We don't need that. It's a lot harder to do it that way. It's much easier to do it this way, blah, blah, blah. The older generation always bitches about it. Well, you kids, you don't understand. You don't appreciate nothing. You had it too easy, and you seem to... It's like
when you watch it actually phase out, people's jobs, it makes you analyze it and take a look at it. Because I was working at a movie theater over the summer and into the fall because of the strikes, and in the projection booth, I asked a question. It was like, I never see the people that work in the projection booth, and they were like, well, there's nobody that works up there. I was like, really? They're like, no. It's all on its own. They just flip a switch and it all just plays however it's broadcast from wherever. It's like you don't actually need anybody up there. I was like, oh. I was like, well, yeah. So then the projectionists, that's a industry that'll be completely phased out, and our skill set that would be gone, or just down to a handful of people who know how to do it. as you the little things like that, you sort of take a moment and think about it. You're like, yeah, as technology, gets better, then, the people that did things before, there's less of a need for them. And I see it in film production, and you see it in the history of film production. It's like as things change, then you don't need, the people that were experts in like, with, remember matte painting was like such a beautiful art, form for films, because you would, make these giant mats and you'd have them in the background. But, now it's all mostly done with computers, and eventually, I'm sure anything they create digitally, they'll be able to do, with AI, and then you won't need the digital painters. And it's sad and fascinating to watch.
Hey, look, you know, uh, Rome was a beautiful empire at one time, but now it's all in ruins. What can I say? I mean, it must have been so awesome, to walk down the stone cobbled streets of the Appian Way. And what can I tell you? I mean, it's out of our hands, and
Yeah.
it's in the hands of the new generation. I just hope that they can learn from us and appreciate, the experiences that we had, and try to incorporate that, and don't lose out on. I mean, film to me is just so beautiful, and the look of film is very unique, and you can't duplicate it digitally. I really feel that you cannot. One film.
That's why I like going to the New Beverly Cinema in Hollywood, and then that's the one that Quentin Tarantino owns. And then he just reopened the Vista, and his whole plan at both of those theaters is only film. That's all that's being projected, nothing digital.
Right.
And they're both. I haven't been to the Vista since it reopened, but I've been to the New Beverly a lot, and I love going to see movies there.
Yeah, I need to get to more. I wanted to go to the Vista Theater in Silver Lake and watch Napoleon, but I never got a chance.
Yeah.
It's just sort of a drive for me, but I'm gonna get back into it. And if I ever, I've got a lot of scripts laying around here, and if I ever produce them, I'm gonna be shooting only on film.
Cool.
So that's it for me. I mean, I've already decided. I've made my choice. I'm sticking with what I know. So, I mean,
Well, I better run, James.
Yeah, same. I've got a
gonna
meeting
go get
here.
Dressed. I'm still in my daytime clothes.
I appreciate you coming back, and I want you to come talk to me again.
Of course.
At some point. And but yeah,
We'll go over to the Vista at some point soon.
Let's do it. I'm seriously looking at retiring from this whole acting thing. I want to do more writing. I want to possibly even write books. But anyway, yeah. Okay, man.
All right, cool. I'll talk to you soon.
Eddie Beasley. Later.
Later.